Hey everybody, Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a quick comparison between the Microsoft Surface Pro 2 on the left and the Sony Duo 13 on the right. Now this is actually the first generation Surface Pro, but for the purposes of this comparison, let's assume it's the i5 Haswell that's found in the second generation. And even though this Duo 13 is the i7 Haswell, let's assume it's also the i5, because that's as close as these machines really get. It comes down to specifications. If you go with the entry-level Duo 13, you're going to get an i5 paired with 4 gigs of RAM and a 128 gig SSD. And if you go with the 128 gig model of the Surface Pro, you're also going to get an i5 Haswell with 4 gigs of RAM. In terms of other differences, the Duo 13 obviously more expensive. $1,000 buys you the 128 gig version of the Surface Pro 2. You can go with the 64 gig model for less money, $899. You can also jump up to 256 and 512 gig options, which are accompanied by 8 gigs of RAM, but you'll still be stuck at the i5 Haswell processor. That may not be a big deal to you. It may be a deal breaker. So it really comes down to what you're actually looking for from either of these machines. And form factor is another big thing. So out of the gate, the Sony more expensive, and that's because it does have more features. You're getting a larger screen, 13.3 inches as opposed to 10.6. So even though those internals in terms of processor, hard drive, and memory are very close, not everything else is. Both do have dual band Wi-Fi, and in my experience, both do perform exceedingly well. So Wi-Fi not an issue. The Duo 13 initially, when it launched, there were some questions about Wi-Fi performance, but at least in my experience, it's been as solid as a rock. That could be because I have a later build where the Wi-Fi has been corrected. I'm not going to speculate on that. But one key difference besides screen size is that this machine on the right also has higher end cameras. We've got two 720p cameras on the Surface Pro 2, whereas on the Duo 13 you've got some actual megapixels, 8 megapixels on the back, 2 on the front, I believe it's rated at, and that's some of the strongest, at least camera performance out of any laptop or Ultrabook or hybrid on the market. Another benefit of the Duo 13 is, of course, that it is a Duo. It's a tablet in this mode, but then you can reveal it's almost full-size keyboard and touchpad. So that's another big advantage. Microsoft's answer, at least in terms of bringing true computer functionality to this tablet on the left, that is a real Ultrabook, as I'm mentioning, at least for the purposes of our review, exactly the same spec when it comes to processor, memory, and hard drive. They've got type and touch covers. This is the type cover 2, backlit keyboard, touchpad, so you do also have an almost full-size keyboard experience for this tablet, which is unrivaled in the industry. Really, this is the tablet to rule them all. And since this second generation of cover does have backlighting, they also have power options, the Surface Pro really is in a class all its own, much like the Duo 13, which is why I like and own both of these machines. One as a tablet, even though this is a computer on the left, and the other as basically the jack of all trades and master of all. This is clearly not a master of none, which often those jack of all trades tend to be. So really, I like both of these machines a lot, and that's one of the reasons I'm comparing them. In terms of weight, they're also close. You know, here you're looking at 2 pounds with the keyboard, whereas with the Duo 13, you're looking at a little under 3, but you are getting a much larger display, a larger keyboard, and overall, much better battery life. Even in the latest generation, the Surface Pro 2, you're looking at somewhere around 6 to 7 hours of battery life. Sony promises 10 with the Duo 13, but the reality is more like, I would say, approximately, at best, you could probably get to a little over 8 hours, but 7 to 8 is the real, or I should say the reality of the battery performance on this machine. They did away with the sheet battery from the Duo 11, and between the Haswell battery gain, or gain in battery performance, coupled with a larger battery because of the form factor of this machine, obviously they've squeaked out more battery life than what you'll get with the Surface Pro. But with the Surface Pro 2, you do have a power cover coming out in the first quarter of 2014, so that's something to keep in mind. In terms of operating systems, they're both Windows Professional 8.1, so 1 for 1 here. The real difference, as I keep mentioning, Screen size, also NFC is here, something missing, and I would like to see added to the Surface Pro eventually. Hopefully in the next gen, in the third generation, we'll see it. Beyond that, you've also got full-size ports. I mean, the Duo 13 is a real computer replacement, and that's not to say that the Pro isn't, but the Pro does it with compromises. I mean, you are getting that benefit of having a tablet form factor, and as a result, you've only got the Pogo port here, the magnetic connection for the keyboard and docking system. You've got on the left-hand side of the tablet a USB 3.0 port, that's your only one, a volume rocker, and a headphone jack. You can see the ventilation runs all around this machine. You are really paying for the engineering on this, much like you are with the Duo 13, because they are in a class, again, of their own. Rear camera right there, front camera, you already saw. Power button in the upper left, at least now, but that is the right side of the tablet. And then on the right side, you've got your micro SD card slot for storage expansion. And you've got your charging port as well as pen holder, and then finally display port for video out. So this doesn't really compromise in terms of delivering everything a true computer would. It does give you everything, and in a 10.6-inch tablet form. The Duo 13, though, because it's got more surface area, clearly does have more room for ports, and I'll show you that right now. Again, they're not similar, at least in terms of their actual form factor. Pen holder right there. As I take you around, on the bottom of the machine, we've got some volume controls right there, as well as the assist button for getting into recovery mode. On the bottom, we've got our NFC contact point, that rear 8-megapixel camera that I mentioned before. On the left-hand side of the machine, we have our power button, and then everything is on the back. We've got two USB ports that are, of course, 3.0, headphone jack, power connector, full-size HDMI out. You may prefer a display port. All depends on what type of monitor you're looking to output to. Something higher res, HDMI is not as ideal, at least with computer monitors right now, but that's really dependent on case by case. Full-size SD card slot, which certainly is preferable for me because of the clear photographic theme of the channel. If you haven't already noticed this as a subscriber, I would always rather have a full-size SD card slot. And in terms of heat, this does get a little bit warmer than Surface Pro, and that again just has to do with the fact that this is a larger computer altogether. Bigger display, that's going to put off more heat, more things under the hood. Both dual band Wi-Fi perform, as I mentioned, very well, and it really just comes down to what form factor you're actually looking for, in my opinion. If you must have that tablet form factor, then the Surface Pro and Pro 2 are the only options on the market. Manufacturers are coming out with things, Sony like the Tab 11. That would have been a better direct comparison, I'd like to say, to the Pro 2, but really not so, because it doesn't have a regular Haswell i5 under the hood. It's got a low voltage, a dual core chip that's in another league, and substantially lesser in terms of performance. So even though it would seem like the better comparison, when it comes to the actual innards, you're looking at two machines that, even though a lot separates them in price, because I think the i5 Duo 13 is somewhere around $1,300 now. It's a little bit older. It came out during the summer. It's still $300-400 more than the 128 gig version of the Surface Pro 2. So two different takes on Windows 8.1. In my opinion, these are some of the best options out there. Also a big fan of the Yoga 2 Pro, but that really is a traditional clamshell computing environment, in my opinion, that tries to be a tablet. These two really can be tablets. Again, the weight distribution, despite the form factor and size of the Duo 13, allow it to be handheld and actually comfortable. Something that you do also have in the lighter tablet that the Surface Pro represents. You also have a kickstand with the Surface Pro, which you don't need, clearly, with the Duo 13, but when it comes to tablets, they have, at least in my opinion, set the standard with kickstands, they being Microsoft. So two really compelling machines. They both perform exceedingly well. They're going to be able to handle just about anything you throw at them. Light video editing, Photoshop, AutoCAD, both have digitizers. There, in terms of performance, Surface does win out because Wacom is the partner there, and that's just inherently better than n-trig. The drivers are out there for n-trig, but you're going to be able to utilize your Wacom stylus in far more applications than you will with the n-trig. Unfortunately, that's the truth. The gap is narrowing, but Wacom has been the standard for a while. n-trig is playing catch up. It's not that they're necessarily inferior, it's just the support isn't as broad. I'm not going to get into that debate now, but both do bring that pen theme in, and that's because, again, even though they don't seem like they're competing, they really are. And that's because, as I mentioned before, Sony's Tab 11 is a low-powered machine compared to the Surface Pro or the Surface Pro 2. But I really like both of these machines. That's why I own them. And in my opinion, you can't go wrong with either one. Of course, pricing is always relevant. And if that is your bottom line, your better option is probably the Surface Pro or Pro 2, unless you really require the extra screen real estate. Then I say go with the Duo 13, spend the extra cash. You won't be disappointed. It's really one of the finest laptop, hybrid, ultrabooks, whatever you want to refer to it as, ever made, in my opinion. And still made in Japan, something that I can't say about the Surface Pro despite its impeccable build quality. And both have best-in-class displays. The Triluminous display here, fantastic. And Microsoft's IPS display, also fantastic. It's a clear type display that really, again, best in the industry. So both robust products. You get what you pay for. It's really a matter of form factor and what you actually need. Do you need the full-size ports? Do you need to have Wacom? Do you need to have that tablet form factor? Hopefully this video helped answer some of those questions. And in the end, either way, both products are incredibly well built, and I think will pacify, or I should say, make just about any customer happy that's in the market for a Windows 8.1 experience in a hybrid state. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. And of course, as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.